study from Bhagavad Gita. I meet many persons from India who say, yes, yes, I know Bhagavad Gita. But then when you ask, have you read it? They'll say, no, not really. Or my grandma read it to me when I was a kid. I've seen episodes of it on TV. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is considered, after you graduate from Bhagavad Gita, postgraduate study. So there's this one interesting verse out of the 12 cantos. This is from the first canto, chapter 2, text 20, which says, Evam prasthana manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vijnanam sankhya jayate. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Really interesting terminology here, that a person who has transcended the three modes of material nature, sattva-gun, which is goodness, rajagun, which is passion, and tamagun, which is ignorance or darkness, that such a person, when actually engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, can gain positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. So many people make this challenge that, oh, you believe in God? Well, can you show me God? Show me. You believe in the sun? Okay, you can show me. It's over there in the sky. But can you show me God? They want something that is observable. We hear the Bhagavatam saying that one can actually obtain scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Now, before we proceed into our topic here about how we can understand that God is indeed an empirically verifiable scientific construct, we need to properly understand the scientific method a little bit. Many persons don't understand the difference between empiricism and observation. Observation, that is, we directly with our senses perceive something. We hear something, we see something, we taste something, we smell something, we touch something, feel something. Direct observation. But empirical science, which is modern reductionistic science is, is not actually based very much on observation. We'll explain that. So the empirical method actually involves hypothesizing scientific constructs. For example, raise your hand if you've ever directly perceived the following. An electron, a proton, a neutron, gravity, momentum, mass, charge, spin, etc. Raise your hand if you've ever directly observed any of those entities. We haven't. Well, then what do you observe? Have you observed temperature or mass? Actually, the only thing that's ever directly observed is position and time. I want to know the temperature of this cup of water. We stick a thermometer in there, and what do we observe? What do we observe when we stick the thermometer in a cup of water?
Sure.
You observe temperature?
Through
The level of
The mercury level, how it increases.
Yeah, we see the
Mercury.
position of the mercury. If you're using a traditional thermometer, you observe the position of the mercury at time equals 0, time equals 1, time equals 2, time equals 3. So you can see, oh, the temperature for the mercury went from here to here. And that little capillary went up 1 inch, and then you have it predated. This is this temperature, this is this temperature. Nobody observes temperature. We only observe position and time. Similarly with momentum. Nobody observed momentum. You observe that this object is in this position at this time. And then you observe that the same object is in this position at another time. And at another time it's over here. And from that, you conclude there's this thing called momentum, which is the speed of an object in a particular direction. So modern science prides itself on observation. We only believe what we can see and hear and smell and taste and touch. But whether you're measuring the temperature of a cup of water, the speed of a racing car, the weight of your luggage that you want to carry overseas, all you're ever observing is position and time. The scale level was here, the scale pan was here, and then it went here when you put your luggage on it. And they calibrate it so it says 22, or 44, whatever. So does that mean there is no such thing as temperature, momentum, charge, spin, mass?
Yeah.
They're there,
Yes.
but you can't observe them.
Well, with the right equipment, you can.
Well,
You
with
can't
our
measure them.
equipment, again, I'll repeat, we are not observing. No one, no true scientist will ever say, we have observed an electron, or we have observed gravity, or we have observed spin, or we have observed temperature, or observed mass, or momentum. What they've done is they've measured, they've made measurements. And what have they made measurements of? Two things. What did we say?
Position and time.
Position and time.
How about smell?
Same with smell. Of course, the way the nose works, right? Chemicals are coming through the air, coming to the nose, and send signals to the brain or whatever. But I'm sure they have those little machines that can also similarly, I don't know what that meter would be called smelling meter, that an aroma meter that can, pick up the little chemicals that come from that perfume or that flower. They have them here. So for those who just walked in, we're just going to, in one or two sentences, summarize this first part. That people challenge, can you show me God? And of course, that's their way of defeating you. Oh yeah, can you show me God? And of course, you have to be honest and say, no. Aha! See, I told you, there is no such thing as God. Therefore, us atheists, we won and you lost. But similarly, where is that person who has directly observed subatomic particles or speed, momentum, mass, charge, spin? Nobody has observed these things. And in fact, in science, all we do is ever is measure two things: position and time. Whether you're putting a thermometer in a cup of liquid or such and such a meter in another thing, all you're ever observing is how the needle on the meter moves with time, how the scale pan goes up or down with time. Nothing's measured except time and position. Yet, although we've never observed electrons and gravity and mass and temperature and charge and spin and momentum, don't we all use those words in our vocabulary all the time? Don't we live our lives as though there really is such a thing, such as gravity, such as temperature? We're always so curious in the morning. We check the weather forecast. What's the temperature going to be today? So I know what kind of clothing to wear. Because, one day it's 80, the next day it's 40. So we all live as though these concepts are real. They're called scientific constructs. A scientific construct is something that you construct, you hypothesize that such and such a thing exists. And what do? We never observe it. But what do? We can empirically verify that it exists. And we call that proof. So for decades, man has accepted that there's such a thing called electrons. And because of our acceptance of the existence of electrons, we do chemistry experiments, we can synthesize pharmaceuticals, we can have electricity. We wouldn't have much of our scientific advancements and technology if we did not accept the existence of electrons. But we've never no one has, and no one ever will, directly observe an electron, among so many other things like gravity and momentum and spin and charge, etc. But what happens is we make a scientific construct. There's this thing, and we're going to call it, what do you want to call it? Oh, that's a good name. Let's call it electron. That's a cool name. We're going to call this scientific construct an electron. And we propose that it has these properties, and it does this, and it does that. And we do all these experiments, and by golly, when we assume that there's this thing called an electron, our experiments work out. And it fits our theory. So we call that empirical verification. That is not observation. So modern science is not based on observation, except for two things: position and time. of the measuring instrument. The measuring instruments have needles that move and lights that go on and off and hands that go up and down and whatever, digital numbers and letters that get read out. So modern science itself only accepts their scientific constructs based on empirical verification, not on observation. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, the graduate study for Bhagavad Gita, also hints that we can have God as a similar, empirically verifiable scientific construct. In other words, we can construct theories of life, theories of nature, that include in the theory not just the construct of weight and temperature and momentum and charge and spin and electrons and neutrons, but also to accept in the theory scientific constructs of other abstract items, such as, on the topmost level, God. And we're going to show a few more. And if our theories, when we run experiments to test those theories, put those theories, to some kind of practical examination, if those theories, the experiments, I should say, work out as the theory predicted they would, then we must conclude that the scientific constructs upon which that theory is made are true, are real. If you run experiments on a theory that proposes the existence of electrons and spin and charge, and those experiments come up with the observable results, that means change of position and time, as your theory predicted, then you must say that all the scientific constructs within that theory are correct. They really, really exist. So similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam professes a system of science, mostly coming from the third canto, called Sankhya philosophy. And that is a theory of life, theory of reality, that has many non-observable, abstract scientific constructs. And if we run the experiments in our life, see, our life is a laboratory. You don't have to go over to the chemistry building to do an experiment. Srimad Bhagavatam is saying that your own body and mind, your life is the laboratory. So you take these experiments home and you execute them. And if the experiment produces the results that the theory was predicting would happen, then the logical conclusion is that the scientific constructs within that theory are correct, are true, are real. So maybe we'll move on to the next slide. In the Srimad Bhagavatam is the teaching of Sankhya philosophy. Philosophy and science are synonymous. Both philosophy and science are systems for producing theories about reality and proposing methodology by which we can go about to verify the constructs that exist within that theory. So the most ancient scientific system, philosophical system called Sankhya, teaches that a complete understanding of matter, all material elements, involves an understanding of God. In other words, without the understanding of God, your understanding of whatever material element or section of material energy that you're studying will be incomplete and inconsistent. And perhaps some of you are aware that science, modern science, is, by their own admission, both incomplete and inconsistent. That's another topic which we won't get into. So in Sankhya, there's a list of different items or entities or elements that are involved in perception. Everybody perceives. Sankhya proposes that there's a hierarchy of elements involved in perception. Like in modern science, you have instruments. And this instrument measures temperature, and this instrument measures mass, and this instrument measures charge, what have you. So Sankhya says that we have a hierarchy of instruments involved in the process of perception. In modern science, we're going to have 7 levels in this hierarchy. Modern science only accepts the lowest of this hierarchy. Let's go to the next slide and start from the bottom here. So that's fine. So we're starting at the bottom. The first of the 7 entities involved in perception, the Sanskrit term is sthula tattva, means the material elements. The stuff that modern science wishes to reduce everything to. When you take your reductionistic paradigm and you break everything down to the lowest possible denominator, that's called sthula tattva, the material elements. And they are measured as having value. I've put here, for example, red, it's the measurement of this vibration that we call color. So, red or round or sweet, or decibels, for sound. Some value or quantity. Okay, and the next level is called tan matra. These are the subtle senses. He doesn't refer to this like, this fleshy thing called an ear, with the eardrum and all that. Tan matra is going to the subtle sense objects. Sense objects. And these are properties, like color. And I had as the quantity down here, red. Another property, shape. I had the quantity down here, round. Another property, sweetness. I had the value as sweet. Another property, loud. And its value, decibels. So properties, that which is actually the concept of above value. So value is at the lowest level, and the more abstract level is called the subtle senses, which measure properties. Okay, the next level, Indriya, the subtle senses. This is where I meant to say it's not referring to like these fleshy organs on our body, you know, this thing called an ear, this thing called the tongue, but it's referring to the sense of hearing, for example. The sense of hearing is actually an internal, subtle sense. It's not referring to this gross instrument called the ear. So at that level, Indriya, the subtle senses, we perceive sensations. Like when light waves come flowing through the air, say 500 nanometers or something, it's just light waves, right? And if a camera picks it up, fantastic, the camera picks it up. But can you say the camera perceives or experiences red? No. When that proper nanometer of light wave comes in, the camera could be programmed that when it hits the photo cell to send a signal over to the printer, and the printer types out, I see a red light. But you can't say that the camera perceives or experiences a red light. So the Indriya, or the subtle senses, are what actually perceive the Tanmatra and Stula Tattva that we listed below it. Okay, next. The next level is Manas, or the mind. The mind then reads all the subtle senses. This subtle sense picked up sound. This subtle sense picked up sight in the form of color and brightness, shade, whatever. This one picked up taste. This one picked up aroma, and this one picked up touch. And it takes all those, it reads all those meters, if you will. The Indriya are like meters. So the mind reads all those meters and puts it all together as one object. So it perceives objects, and it judges these objects as unique individuals. It's not necessarily saying this is a red apple, but it's saying it's an object. You know, like sometimes we're going like this, and, oh, I saw an object over there. Oh, it's a drum. So the mind just perceives that there's an object by putting all the sense perceptions together. Okay, next. Next is the buddhi, or the intellect, and it perceives what that object is based on past information and experiences. The buddhi, or intellect, now understand, it has this belief system about what is an apple, for example. So it judges true or false. Is this an apple, or is this not an apple? Is this just a picture of an apple? Is it a plastic apple? Is it a three-dimensional hologram of an apple? Or is it a real apple? That's what the buddhi does. It determines true or false. Okay, next. Next is ahankar, or ego. And it perceives intentions or goals. It judges good or bad. In other words, oh, that's an apple? Is that a weapon, or is it food? What's the intention of that thing? Is it a weapon? You know, you could throw it at somebody and like give them a black eye. Is it a weapon? Is it a food? You know, does it have good or bad purpose? Good for me or bad for me? What I want or what I don't want? Okay, next. And on the top is Mahat Tattva, or material consciousness, contaminated consciousness. And this is the level of morality judgments, right or wrong. Is this the right thing to do, or is this the wrong thing to do? And that's based on the value system we hold. Is it right to kill this person?
No.
Okay, because we have that value system. But if it's a mass murderer who is just like going wild, killing people left, right, and center, and they're just like, well, it might be right to kill that person in the capital punishment system. So judgments of right or wrong based on what values we hold. So these are the different levels of, or different entities involved in the process of perception. And the lower ones are contingent on the higher ones. The higher ones are more abstract. And the Sankhya philosophy now, see, sense perception enables us to see the contingent entities, but not the abstract ones. So the Sankhya system is ultimately going to teach us how to perceive the higher elements there. So we don't want to be just like meters that only can do the lower level one that science does, just measure values. Okay, maybe we'll go to the next slide. It's said in the Srimad Bhagavatam that these 4 higher elements of perception are ruled by different forms of God. So it said that the consciousness is ruled over by Vasudeva, 4-armed form of the Lord called Vasudeva. And ego is ruled over by another 4-armed form of the Lord called Sankarshan. For some reason, the diacritic marks didn't work on this one. It was working in my computer with me somehow. Anyway, and then over the intellect, Pradyumna rules, and over the mind, Aniruddha rules. So the Sankhya system is describing that behind everything is a form of God. These are 4 different Vishnu forms. Okay, next. It said that matter, that's stuff that scientists study, matter is the mirror in which God is reflected. But the mirror is distorted. If God is the origin of everything, the center of everything, inside everything, Vasudeva represents pure consciousness. In the material world, matter means corrupt morals. There's corrupt morals in this world, but God represents, Vasudeva represents pure, perfect morals. Similarly, Sankarshan represents pure and perfect intentions. But in the material world, we have evil intentions. Right? Go read the newspaper. Pradyumna represents pure and perfect judgments. But we make bad judgments all the time over what's true and what's false. And Aniruddha represents the pure and perfect ideas. But in the material world, we have so many false ideas. So where do those come from? Where do corrupt morals, evil intentions, bad judgments, and false ideas come from? Material energy.
The material mind.
The material mind is guilty of false ideas.
But if the material mind is a machine, or the analogous to a machine, then will be solely from the material mind.
It'll be what?
From the material mind.
Yeah.
And when you have the 3 gunas, those from the
Yes. So you're coming to the point here that something else to add? sense perception,
From the imperfect nature of the sense.
imperfect nature of the senses and mind,
From the God himself.
from God himself. Very interesting. Let me read one verse from Bhagavad Gita. This is 10:8. Aham sarvasya prabhavo makta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samandita. I, Krishna, am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. Even bad things. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So what does that mean? That God's the source of corrupt morals, evil intentions, bad judgments, and false ideas? Yes, but there's a caveat. Keep this in mind. Matter is the mirror in which God is reflected, but the mirror is distorted. You put a perfect and pure image in front of the mirror, but the mirror is distorted. So what will you see?
Distorted image.
A distorted, twisted image. Here we'll go to the next slide. Well, maybe before we go to the next slide, I'm going to read a couple more verses from Bhagavad Gita. Here's another interesting verse from Bhagavad Gita 7:7. Mata parataram nanyat kinchadasti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre manigana eva. There's no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So Krishna is saying, everything rests on him, which resonates with him saying, I'm the source of everything. He says, Sarvabhutastam atmanam sarvabhutani chakmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshana. 629. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. We hear in the 7th chapter, Krishna say that I am the taste of water. I am the fragrance of the earth. I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the sound in ether. I am the heat in fire, etc., etc. But he then says this interesting verse, 725, which confirms this sentence, that matter is the mirror in which God is reflected, but the mirror is distorted. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrita mudoyam nabajanati lokomam achanavayam. I never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I'm covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. Okay, we're going to try to illustrate this now. What time it is? 7:30. I'm going to illustrate this now on the next slide. In communication technology, there's this principle in wireless communication called modulation. If you look in the middle of the slide, you'll see what's called a carrier signal. Okay? The carrier signal is just a nice looking signal. And on the top of the slide, on top of that, you'll see another signal, which looks kind of different, and it's called an information signal. The information signal is what you want to convey from your cell phone to the next person's cell phone. You want to send a vibration, a signal. But you need something to carry it. Something has to carry my information signal from my phone to your phone. So the phone company has what's called a carrier signal. And you pay to use it. And your information signal kind of piggybacks on carrier signal. And it gets carried to, somebody on the other side of the world. And they pick it up with their cell phone. But what happens when your information signal mixes with the carrier signal? It does what's called a modification or a modulation, which means it's a distortion or an adulteration of the carrier signal. So when you add the carrier signal in the middle, if you add the information signal to it, you get that thing on the bottom. It says AM signal, means amplitude modulated signal. There's different ways signals can be modulated, phase or frequency. This is amplitude that we're showing here. So you get this sloppy looking signal on the bottom. Doesn't look like anything too interesting. But when it travels to the other side of the world and somebody picks it up with their cell phone, then the technology over there demodulates the signal, and it separates the carrier signal and the information signal so that the receiver just hears the information signal and not all that other stuff called the carrier signal. So nobody ever perceives or observes carrier signal, but the receiver phone company on the other end, they have an a priori understanding or acceptance of this unseen carrier signal. They take it for granted that it's there, and they're able to subtract that away and be left with just the information signal. So all these sounds, vibrations that we're sending, they're just modulated carrier signals. What's being proposed then? God, who we saw exists in 4 aspects in matter: Vasudeva in the moral sense or consciousness, Shankarsan in the ego, Pradyumna in the intellect, and Aniruddha in the mind. That God is like the carrier wave. And that's all that really exists. And everything we perceive in the material world is a modulation, a modification, a distortion, an adulteration, an addition or subtraction from that original entity, God. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he taught Chaito Darpana Marjanam. He actually compares the chitta or the consciousness to a mirror. And he says that the mirror of the heart needs to be cleansed in order for us to perceive God. And the only reason that we can't perceive God is because our mirror is distorted. That's what we said in the previous slide. Matter is the mirror in which God is reflected, but the mirror is distorted. So everything we see, hear, smell, taste is nothing but God in distorted manner. This was just one information signal put on the carrier signal. You could put a zillion on there. Just imagine if you put like a zillion information signals on there. That bottom one would be just chaos. It would be like chaos, like a bunch of noise. So like that, everything that we perceive in the material world is a modulation or distortion of the original God to one extent or another. And the more that modification, distortion occurs, the further away from God we are. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught Chaito Darpana Marshanam, the human form of life is meant for cleaning the heart, because we don't want our mirror to be distorted. Let's go to the next slide. It said that this material world is like an upside down banyan tree. Its roots are up and its branches and leaves are down, upside down. But the root is the pure source, Krishna, God. And the tree which grows from it, the trunk and the branches and the twigs and the leaves. The further you go away from the root represents further distortion. So if you come to the bottom of the slide, which would be the top of the tree, but it's upside down, so it's on the bottom of the slide, the further away from the root, the more distorted a thing is. And the closer to the root, the more pure the thing is. So Krishna says at the beginning of chapter 15 in Bhagavad Gita that there's an imperishable banyan tree in this world. It has its roots upward and its branches down. The real form of this tree, which is the spiritual tree, cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. This material tree, this upside down tree. Krishna is saying one must, with determination, cut down this tree of distortion. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns. One there surrendered to that Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's 15th chapter, verses 3 and 4, where Krishna says one must cut down this distorted tree. So the impure and the imperfect world, which is this upside down tree, is created by the material energy as a succession of hierarchical distortions. And that distortion cannot exist unless there's the pure original form. So Bharat, also known as Krishna over here, said that Krishna was the the origin of false ideas, bad judgments, evil intentions, corrupt moralities, and it's right. He's right in this sense, that the origin is pure and perfect, but we choose to perceive the distortions that the material energy makes on that pure and perfect form. The material energy serves as the illusory energy, like a distorted mirror, which puts distortions on the pure and perfect original form. And we choose to watch that television channel. So we perceive distortions. So the material world is nothing but a distortion of God. So next slide. The yogi, he seeks the original pure form of everything, and that is Paramatma, who exists in every atom and in every being. This Paramatma can only be perceived by the Atma, the soul. But as I said, Citto Darpana Marjanam. This can only be perceived when the heart is clear and cleansed, when we no longer are paying attention to the distortions. This Paramatma is being proposed as being able to be verified, because if a person perceives God, even just intellectually, theoretically accepts the existence of God, if one accepts the theory of life and reality, which includes God, then that means one's values on the moral level will have been changed, right? If we accept the existence of God as the source of everything, and God is everything ultimately, then our moral values will change. When that changes, then our goals and intentions change. That means on the ego platform, our goals and intentions change. And when our goals and intentions change, then our belief system on the intellectual platform changes. Due to a certain set of values on the morality platform, I think what's really most important and most correct is to run after money. Okay, then that means on the ego platform, my goal and intentions will be aligned with that, which means then on the buddhi or intellect platform, that's my belief system. I really believe that. No matter how much you try to argue with me that something else should be my goal, I'm going to say you're wrong. You're totally wrong. Get out of my life. But if we change our value system, then we change our intentions and goals, which means we change our belief system, which means then we change our ideas on the mental platform, which ultimately means, as you go down that list that we showed earlier, the hierarchy, we're going to change our perceptions in the material world, our experiences of matter. So the Sankhya system is saying you don't change your, how many people here wish they could change at least some of their experiences in this material world? Like, you know, the ones that made you cry, the ones that made you depressed, the ones that made you angry, the ones that made you feel lonely, the ones that made you feel cheated, the ones that made you feel sick. Wouldn't you like to change those perceptions, those experiences? Well, the Sankhya philosophy is saying you can, but you don't do it by changing the world. You don't do it by changing the material elements, which is what modern science tries to do. We'll manufacture chemicals. You know, we'll move things and remove things and build things and destruct things. And Sankhya says you change yourself. That's why we showed that hierarchy. You are on the top of that hierarchy. Consciousness is a symptom of the soul. You, the soul, are making the choices on the level of values, which is the level of morality. Once you make that choice, that I choose this to be my value system, then concomitantly, like you can knock over one domino, then the next one falls, the next one falls, the next one falls. By changing your value system by your conscious choice, then necessarily your intentions and goals change. And then necessarily your belief system changes, which means your ideas change, which means your sense perceptions change, all the way down to the bottom of the barrel. So Sankhya says you change your experience in life by changing from the top down, not from the bottom up, like modern science tries to do. So we'll go to here's the two more slides. So people ask, can you show me God? Our answer is no. We cannot show you God. Why? Because God is not an observable entity. The only thing that's observable with our gross material senses is two things:
Position and time.
position and time. But although God cannot be observed with our gross material senses, God can be scientifically verified. Just like you can verify electrons, gravity, momentum, spin, charge, temperature, mass. We can verify the existence of God by doing the experiment in our life according to the textbook of Sankhya. We perform those experiments, and if we come up with the results that the theory predicted we ought to, then we can say we have empirically verified the existence of God. Next, final slide. This is the purpose of yoga and meditation, to Cheto Darpana Marjanam, to cleanse the heart. And as it said, Atashi Krishna Namadi, Na Bavad, Grayam Indriyai, Sevan Mukehi Jivado, Swayam Eva Sparati Yada. That God, God's name, God's qualities, God's form, God's pastimes can never be observed with our gross material senses. But if we use our senses, beginning with the tongue, to purify our consciousness, to clean the mirror, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, clean the mirror, then Swayam Eva Sparatyada, Krishna will manifest on the clean mirror. And then we will see God. That's what this meditator is showing. So this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. How many people here have a tongue and 2 ears? All right, qualified. So if you have a tongue and 2 ears, all you have to do is vibrate. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Sevan Mukehi Jivado, beginning with the tongue, one can engage their body in the service of the Lord. And by vibrating the Hare Krishna mantra with the tongue and using the tongue to taste Krishna prasadam, those are the two main activities, and hearing with the ears. Of course, when we chant, we're hearing. By that process, the mirror of our heart will become cleansed. It will no longer be a material heart, because what's wrong with the material heart? What happens?
Distorted.
Yeah, matter is the mirror on which God is reflected, but the mirror is distorted. So we want to not have a distorted mirror. We want to have a clean, crystal clear mirror for Krishna to be manifested in an undistorted form. And that then is your direct observation of God. But while there's any distortion there, no direct observation. But we can have levels of verification. So we'll stop there and see if there's any quick questions. We have almost 15 minutes. So Srimad Bhagavatam is not just, oh yeah, I mean, we meet people all the time. Oh yeah, I'm from India. Yeah, I have Bhagavad Gita. I know all about that. But nobody wants to read books because they think it's just a bunch of mythological stories, ancient, moral stories, fables, prescriptions on how to be a good person. Srimad Bhagavatam is a textbook. It's a scientific textbook. How to understand matter, how to understand spirit, which is what you are, and to understand how they're entangled. Like, why are you in that material body anyway? We're all so proud when we wake up in the morning and we go and take a bath and put our makeup on and do our hair and look in the mirror, and we're all so very proud of our body. We make sure we go to the gym and make it look nice, dye it, and put expensive clothing and jewelry, and comb the hair just right. And we're so proud of the body. Why are you in a material body? What's your problem? You should be embarrassed. How embarrassing. You know what? I have a material body. How embarrassing. You know why it's embarrassing? Because it's your prison suit. You know, like if you go to a penitentiary, everybody's wearing the same outfit. Now, if you walk in there, you're some kind of visitor, you know. Hopefully you're just a visitor. You go in there as a visitor and you look different than everybody else. And they look at you like, look what he's wearing, a green shirt and blue jeans and tennis shoes. Oh, look at us. We've got this black and white stripe thing or orange suit or whatever it is they wear. He's different. You're like, yeah, this is what, you know, free people wear. And then you look at the next guy. Oh, you have the same suit as I do. Oh, you've got that suit too. And then now we become very embarrassed. I'm wearing a prison suit. So these material bodies are prison suits. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is describing, how did you, the most exalted spirit soul, become, what's the word? Incarcerated. Incarcerated in a yucky material body that's made of blood and mucus and stool and urine and bile and nasty air and pus and hair and, sorry, I didn't mean to insult you, but that's what you're made out of. You're just a bag of blankety blank, right? So how did you, the soul, become incarcerated in such a nasty prison suit? And how can you, the spirit soul, become extricated from that prison suit? Wouldn't it be really nice to know that? That's what Srimad Bhagavatam's all about. The science of how did you get incarcerated, and the science of how you can become unincarcerated. And it requires Cheto Darpana Marjana, cleansing the mirror of the consciousness. Because unless and until one can directly perceive God with their Atma, one will miss the boat and will continue to remain incarcerated in the material world. So it behooves us to study the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a huge work, but it's not, it's the value of the book. You can't put a value on it. Like, you can't buy it for $1 million, you know what I mean? It's invaluable. And that's where this Sankhya philosophy is presented. Does anybody have anything to add or subtract or discuss?
Just very, very, I thought, you know, when we used to say that cleansing the mirror of our minds, you're saying consciousness, and so you're saying basically the mind and the heart. Now, somewhere I read that the mind is considered a machine. The material mind is the subtle.
There's
the
two
subtle
levels.
mind is a machine.
There's two levels of the mind. So
and there's a spiritual mind.
So manas.
Yeah, but my question is regarding the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Is the same? Is there there's a spiritual heart,
Mhm.
and then there's a material heart. There's like the machine of the subtle machine of the subtle body, the mind. The subtle body is considered a machine, yet the soul has a mind.
So manas refers to what we normally refer to the mind, what I'm thinking about and feeling, willing and all that. It's a material element. Chitta refers to what many psychologists call the unconscious mind. It's a higher thing called chitta. And that's the word Chaitanya Mahaprabhu uses, Chaito, Chitta. Chaito Darpana Marjanam. Prabhupada translates it as heart, the seat of consciousness. Here it was described as Mahat Tattva, or materially contaminated consciousness. Still, consciousness influenced by the three modes of material nature. But when that consciousness becomes purified of all remnants and vestiges of the three modes of material nature, then it becomes pure consciousness, or Shuddha-sattva consciousness. And that was the first thing we mentioned at the beginning of this evening's talk, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.20, that when a person comes to this platform of being on the level of Shuddha-sattva, then one gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. That's the level, Shuddha-sattva level, pure consciousness, that's spiritual.
Another issue that you mentioned was the positive scientific knowledge. Now, there's also the negative, which is relating to the realization of Brahma Jyoti realization. Do you have anything on that? You know, when you're saying positive, what's the negative?
The negative, so we showed those pictures of the distorted wave. You have the carrier wave, and then you can put a whole bunch of other waves on it, and you get this big, messed up, distorted looking thing. So if we remove one distortion, no, it's okay. We remove one distortion, then we remove another distortion, then we remove a third distortion, and a fourth distortion. There's like a million of them. And as you remove the distortions, that's called neti. The supreme truth is not this. Throw out that distortion. This isn't part of the truth either. Throw out that distortion. This isn't part of the real absolute truth either. Throw out that distortion. And you just throw out all the distortions. Then you come down to just the naked absolute truth. That actually would be the Brahma Jyoti. Neti. You've thrown away everything material. Now one has to, it's another longer topic, but then one has to actually come in contact with, if they haven't already, pure devotees of the Lord, which give them the concepts of the personal nature, qualities, pastimes, form, names, etc. of the personality Bhagavan. By the neti process of just not this, not this, not this, not this, you just come down to Brahma Jyoti.
So that would be the negative.
Anything else?
I guess I kind of got a little confused when you were talking about measuring temperature and mass. I got a little confused by that.
Yeah, I want to measure the temperature of this cup of water. So I put a thermometer in there and I watch the mercury go from this position to this position.
Yeah.
So all I've measured is
Yeah.
position of the mercury. I haven't measured, and I call that. I say, look, the mercury was 1 inch high in my capillary that I put in
Isn't
there.
that like when you're sick and you try to measure if you have a fever?
Yeah.
Or not?
So all you're measuring, you put the thing in your mouth and you take it out. The mercury was 1 inch up the capillary, but after a minute in my mouth, it's 2 inches up the capillary. And next to it, it's written, 104 or something. So all I'm measuring is the movement of the position of the mercury.
Yeah.
That's called movement. At time number 1, it was here. At time number 2, it was here. That's all I'm measuring is how did the mercury move? And I interpret that to say it means, 100 degrees or whatever it means, temperature. But you never observe temperature. You simply observe position and time.
I got confused by that.
I know it's simple, but yet it's a mind blower. Like, really, all we ever observe is position and time when we're making measurements, I mean. It's the only thing you can measure.
Is that the free will, like the change from position regarding the time? Now, God or Krishna doesn't know. He knows everything, but yet he doesn't know what our free will is going to do. So, is that free will in relationship, that position? And
Yes.
although the whole sine wave is already known, yet he doesn't know. And that's what allows us to have free will.
Yes, free will causes motion. Free will. We're always making choices. And it starts with our value system. And by choosing our values, we necessarily choose our intentions, which chooses our judgments of right or true or false, our beliefs, then our ideas, and then our perceptions on the sensual platform. Anybody else?
And similar to the other momentum and all those things, we can also say we have never seen air, but air is there. Like that, even we have never seen God, but God is there. We can feel him. We can feel his presence.
Exactly. Prabhupada would say, have you ever seen intelligence? Have you ever seen your intelligence? And how do I know you have any? Maybe you don't have any. Show me your intelligence. Come on, show it to me. Well, look, I have a PhD.
Some other thing is lack of it.
Yeah, right. Show me your intelligence. You're telling me, show me God. And I'm going to say, I'll show you God. But first, show me your intelligence. And you're not able to do that? I conclude you don't have any intelligence then. Right? You're concluding that there's no God because I can't show you in an observable way. Well, I'm going to conclude that you don't have any intelligence because you can't show it to me in an observable way. Oh, but you can show symptoms of intelligence, like you're able to create coherent sentences. So we can also, that's what that empirical verification is all about. So God is a scientific construct. He's not any less of a scientific construct than electrons and charge and momentum are. They're also totally 100% abstract. So why is God not allowed in the scientific formulas, theories? It's just a biased prejudice, preconceived bias and prejudice. God is just as much a scientific construct as all these things that we accept, like gravity and charge and momentum.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry. Bhupa, go ahead.
no, you can go ahead. I can ask later.
No, we'll have you go first.
Okay. So I'm not sure if I understood. So you were asking, what is the source of the corrupt morals, evil intentions?
What is that?
What is the source of the corrupt morals, the evil intentions? And you said that the answer is God.
Like this. This is how God is the source of everything, even evil. God is the original, pure and perfect form. But when he's reflected in a distorted mirror, the image that we get is a distortion, a perversion. But you can't have an image in the mirror without having an object that's reflecting in the mirror. So in that way, God is the source of, corrupt morals and evil intentions and bad judgments and false ideas. He's perfect and pure. But the medium in which he's being reflected is distorted. So the image that's produced is a perversion. But where did that image come from? It didn't originate in the mirror. The mirror has no image in it. It's just naked. Nothing. It only reflects what's put in front of it. So if you put something ugly in front of the mirror, then the image is going to be ugly. If you put something beautiful in front of the mirror, it'll be something beautiful. But if the mirror is distorted, sometimes they have these funny houses that you go in, and they have these mirrors, and you go and you stand in front of that mirror, and you're normally like 6 foot, 200 pounds, and you go and stand in front of the mirror, and you look like you're 5'3" and 400 pounds, or, you know what I mean? Or it stretches you like this, or it stretches your head, but lowers the rest of your body's skin. So where did that image come from? It came from the original pure and perfect form. But you're observing it through a distorted mirror. Why are you looking at it through a distorted mirror? Why don't you just look at the pure and perfect form? Why are you choosing to look at it through a distorted mirror? That's your choice. You think it's fun to go to the fun house and look at all the funny mirrors. Oh, ha, ha, look at, I look like I have a head that's 7 feet wide. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, look at my spouse. He looks like he's 2 feet tall and 4 feet wide. Ha, ha, ha. Why are you doing that? Why don't you just look at the pure and perfect form? Because you're not eligible. Chaito, Darpana, Marjana. How many here would like to look at the pure and perfect form? Right? Not sure.
No, I'm sure.
Okay. Kind of like we want to see the pure and perfect form, and that's all that matters. We're not eligible at the present moment to see and hear and smell and taste and touch the pure and perfect form. But if we really want to, that starts the process of Chaito Darpana Marjanam. Chaito Darpana Marjanam, cleansing of the heart, the mirror, is catalyzed by strong hankering. One can go through the motions, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I can chain my pet parrot to do that. You know what I mean?
Bad idea. I think they're a parrot. Do they hear
Hey, I have. They're really good at it too. But are they Chaito Darpana Marjanam? No, they're not. There has to be the intention. Remember, we said it starts with the value system, and then the intention, and then the belief system, and then the ideas, and then your perceptions will change. So even if we're very unqualified and very ineligible to see the pure and perfect form at this point in time, if we just cry for that, the child, the little children, completely incapable of feeding themselves. You've noticed that when the children grow, be quiet, Mom. I can open the refrigerator. I can open the cookie cupboard. You know, I don't need you. I can open the refrigerator and pull out something and eat it. But when they're like 1 year old, they can't do that. But they really want to eat. So what does a baby do when they really want to eat? Cry. What kind of cry? Is it just like,
They really want something. Loud cry.
what kind of crying do they do?
Very loud, very intense.
Really intensely and really loud and with full emotion and intention. And they won't stop until they get what they want. Sometimes moms have to feed their babies because the neighbors come over and knock on the door and say, feed your kid before I call the cops. Right? So we have to have that desire. That's all we need. That is our qualification. There's no qualification based on the, monetary, how much money you have, how much intelligence you have, what position in society you have, how good. You could be the most sinful of all sinners. You could be the most evil of all evil people. But if you just have that intention, why is that intention there? What's above intentions? What was the hierarchy?
Consciousness.
Yeah, and what's on that level? Our value system. The child values food because without it, I'm going to die. So he understands, he or she understands food is very important. So therefore, the intention is I'm going to cry for it. So our value system has to be there. And that's why we have to hear from Srimad Bhagavatam. So that our value system says, this is the most important pursuit of human life. And I got to do it right now in this lifetime before death comes, because I don't want to be incarcerated for another term in this hellhole called the material world. And I don't know when death is going to come. 4 weeks ago, we were at the University of North Carolina in Charlotte. And we were distributing books outside the Kennedy Hall classroom building called the Kennedy Hall. We met many nice students who took Bhagavad Gita. 2 days ago in the news, we read that a student on the last day of classes inside Kennedy Hall at the University of North Carolina in Charlotte took out a pistol and shot down and killed 2 students and injured 4 others, and would have killed many more if one of them hadn't jumped on him and disarmed him and called the cops and blah, blah, blah. You don't know when death's going to come and not going to come. And the 2 people that died, one was 19 and one was 21. I bet everybody in this room's older than that, except your kid. You don't know when death's going to come. So that's what Srimad Bhagavatam and Sankhya philosophy are telling us. Get your value system in order. Once you got your value system in order, then your intentions will be in order. And then your belief system will be in order. And your ideas will be in order. And then your sense perceptions will be in order. How you perceive life, your experiences will totally change. So that's the proof of our having our value system in place, is that we cry for that thing that we want and we're determined to get it. Our intention is fixed. Fixed
The
determination.
last couple of weeks we've been talking about values.
Okay, good.
We've been talking about that a lot.
I think there was one thing back here. He had his hand up first.
So we're talking about momentum, speed, this and that. These things are not visible by our eyes. So now I have a question, like how can we know that like God has some form and like, he is not some who hasn't got some form? But Mira God has.
Mm-hmm. You know how you see God? Not with your eyes. How do you see God?
Your heart.
With your ears. How do I know anything? By hearing from those who are authorities in the subject matter. I haven't the foggiest idea what molecules and atoms and electrons look like, or what they do, what their properties are. But I hear from PhD chemists, and they teach me how I can also empirically verify. So we can actually empirically verify that God has form and qualities and personality and characteristics and pastimes. That's all verifiable, but that's at a high level. We're working on just the first level of even just accepting God as an abstract entity, whether with or without form. Just getting that far is a big accomplishment. But yes, Srimad Bhagavatam very nicely details how to realize God in stages. First as the impersonal, formless energy, all one consciousness. Then the localized, partial expansion of God is Paramatma in the heart and in every atom. And finally, as full-fledged Bhagavan. It's a science. If we don't do the experiment, you'll never get the results.
Why Bhagavatam? There are so many scriptures out there. So why do we choose Bhagavatam?
Bhagavatam is the only scripture that directly talks about in full the absolute truth in full. Bhagavan, Paramatma, and Brahman. Go find all the other scriptures in the world. This is your homework assignment. Did you ever have to do this in elementary school? They gave you a book. They give you a book and say, take the book home, read it, and write a book report. The book report had to
5
report.
paragraphs.
Yeah, right. Had the whole book. You had to report back to the teacher in written form of how many paragraphs, what the book was talking about, what the theme was, or what the lesson was, what you learned from it, what the 5 most important points were, or whatever. So here's your homework assignment. Go to the library and find all the different scriptures of the world and read them and write a brief book report on them. And we shall see to what extent scriptures are talking in detail in a very scientific way about the name, form, qualities, pastimes, entourage, and paraphernalia of Bhagavan.
So Mataji, what
I'll
you-
save you a lot of headache by telling you to start with the Srimad Bhagavatam, because you'll have a really long book report on that one. And you'll find all the answers there, then you'll say, well, there's no point in even reading the other ones. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what you are saying is there is no scripture in this world like this, which describes the personal feature of the Lord, how it is, what's the color.
Not as extensively as Bhagavatam. There may be some hints here and there, but not to the extent of Srimad Bhagavatam, culminating in the Braj Leela of Radha and Krishna. Most confidential knowledge.
Then one more point, Mataji, you are discussing the open jail. So like we call it is Matunga Gaya, everybody chained here. So who will help us out in this situation, Everybody is a prisoner.
Yeah, we're all prisoners, so we can't help, a drowning person can't help another drowning person get out of the water. So we have to take shelter of a person who's not drowning, of a person who's not in jail. So again, Srimad Bhagavatam is there, translated and explained with full commentary by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. So by reading Bhagavad Gita as it is, and Srimad Bhagavatam as presented by Srila Prabhupada, we have Guru along with the scripture. So Guru is there if we read it with a submissive attitude. Guru can be there, but you might not perceive Guru there. You don't get any advantage from it. So you have to enter with the proper mood. So first we have to learn what the mood of a disciple is. And then when we read Prabhupada's books, we can perceive Guru there. Otherwise, we'll miss out. We won't get what we could have gotten. It's almost 8:20, so I think we have to stop. Wait, one last question. Oh, I forgot. Oh. Yes, if you need a Srimad Bhagavatam set, we have a couple in our van. What's the next part of the program? We do a little kirtan and then prasadam. Okay, so like 10 minutes kirtan. Okay, we'll just do a short kirtan since we went a little over time.
We had one question.
No, that's fine.
No, let's
No,
just
it's okay.
end with one quick question.
Yeah, like what Mataji asked the question about, the source of evil is also God, So I just I was trying to understand on this material level, like since I'm a soul and I've been doing evil to somebody, okay, always I have the habit of doing something evil to somebody. So does that mean is the source from the Lord? That means this is because of my past karma I'm doing this to build up my more, or it's because my heart is distorted, the mirror in my heart is distorted, that's why it's telling me to do bad.
So bad things happen to us. Evil things happen to us because of our karma. I did bad things in the past. So now in this life, I have to be the victim of evil. Now you ask, is it my karma that predetermines that I'm going to do more evil in this life? The answer is no. Your karma might influence you in this sense, that due to your past karma, you may be very influenced by tamagun, the mode of ignorance, which is always knocking on your, do this, kill that person, rob that bank, hurt that person, steal from that person, lie to that person. The mode of ignorance is always pouncing on you. But you can say no. The modes of nature don't make you do something. The modes of nature make you be tempted with things. Another person, due to their good karma, is not influenced by the mode of ignorance. So the mode of goodness is more prevalent in their life. So the mode of goodness is knocking on their head and saying, give charity over here, help this sick person over here, feed this person over here, teach this person over here. Blah, blah, blah. But they can also say no. And one who's influenced by the mode of ignorance due to their past karma, they're getting, come on, bring a pistol into the room and kill everybody. Come on, do this, do that, nah, nah, nah. But you always have the free will to say no. In fact, one philosopher named Libet, he says we do not have free will. We have free won't. But I have the ability to say I will not. Anger, depression, whatever, bad ideas, I want to do evil things. That's haunting us due to our past karma. And it might be really heavy because it's 24/7 at really loud decibels. But we always have free won't. I will not choose that.
There is one comment, if it is taken rightly. Suppose I'm facing towards God, so obviously God is light, so there is no darkness or evil side. The moment I try to face opposite side, then I see shadow, which may be the evil part. Is that because I am going away from the God, so that's making me to be evil?
Well, many people have turned away from God, but they're not evil because they're being influenced by the mode of goodness. So they're doing mundane charity and mundane philanthropic work and mundane welfare work, right? They're not evil. So anything mundane is due to paying attention to the three modes of nature, which are just different mirrors that God is reflected in. The mode of goodness distorts God like this. The mode of passion distorts him like this. And the mode of ignorance distorts him like, So due to our past karma, we see different distortions of God. And the modes of nature, which are in the Mahatattva, are constantly bombarding us with unlimited possibilities of ideas. And we are saying yes or no. So we have to exercise our free won't. Free will is more for those who are free of the modes of nature. Those of us who are under the modes of nature have to exercise our free won't. The only basic decision we can make with our free will is to turn to Krishna, is to say, I want to see, I want to perceive and experience the pure and original, perfect form of reality. That's what you can do with your free will, to have that desire and then say no to everything else that doesn't fit that description. You're a phony. You're not the perfect, pure, original form. No. And then I say no to that one, no to that one, no to that. And the more I keep exercising that, after some time, they'll stop bothering me.
And Mataji brings out another question that we are always in the influence of mental mode. Nobody can escape. And it is Krishna's mercy. Only by his mercy only we have to come out of. So how do we come out unless we look at
Unless when Bhagavad Gita 7:14, I hope you're reading your Bhagavad Gita. There's so many fantastic verses in there. Right in the middle of the book, 7:14, Krishna says, it's impossible to overcome the three modes of material nature. Don't be proud of your intelligence and your physical strength and your money and your position and this and that. It's impossible to overcome the three modes of material nature, so don't even try. But if you just do one thing, just this one little thing, if you desire, change your value system. Krishna says, change your value system. Make me the top value in your life. Surrender unto me, and I will free you from the three modes of material nature. Because he's the, the master that has the leashes, and we got dogs on leashes. Violent, angry dogs on the leashes. You're walking down the street and you see this person walking down the street with these vicious dogs on leashes. They start like barking at you and jumping. And, you're shaking in your boots. You can't call those dogs down. Shut up. Get away from me. I'm going to call the police on you. But you can go to the master of the dog. Oh, dog master, could you please call your dogs off, please? I'm scared of dogs. And the master just goes, hut! And the dogs, oh, they sit down. So Daivyesha Gunamayi, Mama Maya Daratyaya, impossible to overcome the three modes of nature. But if you surrender unto me, what does that mean? Make me the top value in your life. Then you're free of the modes of nature. But we don't want to do that. Because life is fun in jail, isn't it? Okay, I think we're gonna, one last.
Sorry. So, how do you understand that the first karma, which is transferred to one life to another life? So, what is the medium? I mean, how the one, can we transfer from one life to another life? What is the medium for that? Because anything is.
Yeah, how does your karma carry over from what?
Yes.
Yeah, because you know what? If we can figure out the mechanism, then maybe we can make our money travel from this life to this life too. Maybe it's kind of like, beam me up, Scotty, and it can like beam our money up to our next lifetime also. The way it works, the demigods. Krishna has this humongous administrative staff in the material world called the administrative demigods. So they know everything, past, present, of you, and they're keeping tally. So they have your record book, like your report card. So when death comes and you exit this body, you, in your subtle body, are carried to the womb of another mother. It's actually carried in a sperm cell, and that's injected into the womb of a mother. And you're born with a particular body. Maybe you're born blind due to your past karma because you plucked somebody's eyes out, or you used your eyes for looking at pornography all the time. So now, no eyes for you. You know, whatever you did. So you get born. Why do we all have different bodies? I don't see any two identical bodies on this planet Earth. We all get a particular body, a particular family, a particular nation, a particular society, a particular health, a particular education, a particular everything due to our past karma. It's all written down on our report card.
Just a moment. So if it is like that, however, because material body we lose, right? Material body is not existed once we die, right?
Physical body.
Then is it like that soul can carry that?
The subtle body, only at death, the only thing that you lose is your gross body made of chemicals, blood, bones, hair, tissue. But your subtle body made of mind, intelligence, and ego, you don't lose at death. That is the vehicle that the soul travels in to their next mother. So you keep the same. Why are people born at 2-3 years of age? You can already tell, wow, this girl is going to be a fantastic artist, or this girl is going to be a fantastic mathematician, or this guy is going to be, you know, such and such. You can already tell many times at 2-3 years of age, because they're carrying those desires and those aspirations and those inclinations. Their mind goes from one body to the next.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're definitely going to stop there.
Mataji,
Very, very short. What did you say?
Last question. So whoever goes back to Godhead, what he can.
So the only way you get rid of that subtle body, death is what gets rid of the gross body. Whether it's suicide or accident or natural death, you lose the gross body. But suicide or accident or death does not get away the subtle body. You're stuck in that subtle body. And the funny thing is, the subtle body is where you experience happiness and distress. So many people commit suicide because they can't stand the pain of this lifetime. I'm suffering so much in this lifetime, I'm just going to kill myself and be done with it. But all he did or she did was shed the material gross body. But the subtle body, which actually is where the perception of happiness and distress are, continues to the next life. So they didn't accomplish anything. And in fact, they've actually increased their karma. Now they're going to suffer more. But anyway, but if one Cheto Darpana Marjanam cleanses that subtle body, then one dissolves the material subtle body and awakens the spiritual body, so that when one goes back to Godhead, they're not being carried in a gross body, they're not being carried in a subtle material body. That soul is only being carried in a spiritual body.
And they got a body like Krishna.
We will ultimately one day have a 100% spiritual body with form and personality and activity and everything, likes and dislikes, but it won't be made of the stuff that deteriorates and has faults and is a distortion. It'll be undistorted, permanent.
And as you were telling in the beginning, it will not be dust, stool, and maybe
Yes, it will not be that. Okay, we are going to stop there. And we're going to do a very short kirtan and have